Today's episode is brought to you by the Vegas Beer Guys and the Sounds in Cinema podcast.
Everything sequel contains explicit language. And why the fudge not, you melon farmer?
Hello and welcome to the Everything Sequel podcast. This is the Dirty Harry edition. Today we're talking Deadpool. Michael Shantz here of the How Dare You Awards. Joining me, the man who's got you in his sights, Tom Stewart of Lonesome Whistle Productions. Hello, Tom.
You forgot your fortune cookie. It says you're shit out of luck.
I think that would be the in a game of who said this, McGonagall or Callahan. I think that'd be the ace up my sleeve.
Yeah, exactly.
You'd never guess Callahan.
You'd
would
never
you?
think Callahan. You would say, "Oh, that's easy. That's McGonagall."
Yeah. And yet, it's lines like that make me like this movie perhaps more than
we should. Yeah. Exactly.
Because we've talked about, it is the nadir of the series, but if you're gonna have a nadir in your series, make it this one.
Right.
Because it's perfectly enjoyable.
For a movie that on its surface just looks silly at times,
Boy, I mean, it looks. We've said before that there are kind of Naked Gun tendencies. Into the franchise. There are whole scenes in this that
are straight out, that feel straight out of. Yeah.
Yeah, even Naked Gun would say no, too broad, too on the nose.
But for a movie with as much silly shit in it, I mean, it's just funny that like you said, there's so much in it to enjoy.
Well, I was,
and I mean, those two things might be wrapped into each other
a little bit, but at the same time, you can stand back and say, yeah, that, I mean, like any of the Dirty Harry movies, there's a few good character moments in here. Mm-hmm. There's some excellent one-liners.
Sure.
I'll tell you something that was a kind of revelation to me, and what always holds me back from condemning the sillier parts of this movie is I really like the storyline to this movie.
Yeah, right.
I think it really works.
And I even remember thinking that when I first saw the previews, I was like, oh, the Deadpool. Like, somebody's got a Deadpool. Like, somebody's got a list.
But it's such a great idea for a serial killer movie.
Right.
And, even though it's kind of mangled and mishandled and it doesn't fit the Dirty Harry formula, as
Completely.
You're watching it, you go, oh, this is the basis of a really good serial killer movie.
Right.
Like, it's brilliant. A list of people, a serial killer is out there killing people who are on a list that is a pool of people who are going to die. I mean,
and they're famous.
You could get greenlit on that idea alone.
I also like the idea that they're all well known.
Yeah,
because that makes killing them all the more difficult.
Right.
You have to be able to get to them. You gotta.
And it means, as we find out in this movie, that you don't need to be connected to the person to be a suspect.
Right.
Because there's a point in this movie where you're like, well, what's the connection between these two people? And then you realize you don't have to have a connection because these guys are on TV, in the papers, in magazines all the time. That's how they know each other.
Right.
So it really works. I'm just really surprised that they burnt this idea out on the last Dirty Harry movie in the series, designed to put Clint Eastwood's Hallie Callahan out to pasture.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, of course, ladies and gentlemen, we are talking about the Deadpool, the last in the Dirty Harry series. This is a 1988 film directed by Buddy Van Horn. You might not know him, but you may have seen Any Which Way You Can and Pink Cadillac.
So in the Dirty Harry series, you have both the director of Every Which Way But Loose and
Any Which Way You Can. Yeah.
That's fascinating.
But this guy, well, his bigger claim to fame is he's a major stunt coordinator.
Okay.
Yeah.
Uh,
And,
that's interesting.
it's funny. I think it's interesting that Clint Eastwood chooses to go back to having a director as opposed to doing it himself.
Especially in a movie which seems to be all about Clint Eastwood
Right.
in Hollywood as a
Yeah,
director.
right,
There's so many
exactly.
references to Clint. Well, this is a movie about movies. Let's
Yeah,
get that out there.
exactly
It's not
right.
a movie about police work. This is a movie about movies, or media culture more generally. Maybe
Hmm.
you could stretch that far. It's definitely not about the police.
It's not about cops, right? Yeah, no.
So it's fascinating that Clint Eastwood would step away from the director's chair just at the moment his movies are about movie direction.
Yeah,
Maybe it is. Maybe he made a wise choice and he was like, I don't.
this is
want
going to be
I
the
don't-
silliest of the Dirty Harry movies.
or
Perhaps
even that it's like
I'll remove myself from that much ownership.
right, or if I'm making a movie that's this metatextual, maybe this will be
Right.
taken as my statement on cinema, and I don't want to have to deal with that. I just want to kind of write out the series, make it about me on screen,
Yeah.
which is interesting because as far as I can tell, Buddy Van Horn seems to have taken the establishing shot that Clint Eastwood used for Sudden Impact wholesale.
Right. Exactly.
So it almost, for the first minute of this movie, it doesn't really matter that Clint Eastwood's not directing it because we're using a shot that he directed.
Yeah. I myself wrote a note that said, how in his ear was Clint Eastwood?
Right. Or how...
I have an idea, or was it I have an idea, or was it this is what we're going to do?
Yes. I mean, I don't know how that works. He doesn't strike me as...
No, yeah.
He doesn't strike me as the kind of guy who breathes down other directors' necks.
He's not a Stallone.
Right. I mean, he's worked with enough... He's worked with enough directors who you imagine wouldn't take any shit from him, like Sergio Leone or Don
Right.
Siegel. You think that... I don't know, but he's so wrapped up in these movies as a producer that he's
Mhm.
clearly... I mean, you've spoke to numerous behind the scenes
Right.
anecdotes about him intervening and saying, this is what we're doing, we're going to push this movie in this direction. So clearly, he's having a great deal of influence. I don't think he's directing the movies for the directors, though. And I think that really shows
Mhm.
when you compare this to Sudden Impact.
Right.
Because these two directors make very different choices with the same material.
Right. Right. Well, and I also find it. I mean, so we're square in the rule of diminishing returns here.
Right.
A budget of $31 million, opening weekend of $9 million,
Mhm.
but still $37.9 million in the USA and the world. But when you compare it to the juggernaut of the movie that preceded it,
Yeah.
obviously they thought it was coming to an end. And I also find it interesting, like as silly as this movie is, it still has 53% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, I mean, it's a perfectly serviceable, crappy movie. I mean,
Yeah, exactly.
It's not, I don't want to take pot shots at this. I mean, there are a few scenes where you have to take pot shots at it, but aside
Right.
from that, it's
Well,
it's
and
very watchable shit.
It's
you know?
very watchable shit, and I think this movie also benefits from having at least two other actors somewhere near, one at the very beginning of his career and the other near the beginning of his career, in Liam Neeson and Jim Carrey. And
God, yeah. Not to
so-
mention Patricia Clarkson.
and yet Patricia Clarkson
yeah.
as well. And so, you have all of that sort of wrapped up into the deliciousness of the movie.
Yes.
Well,
yeah.
when you're staring at terrible ponytails and listening to the British accent that I know you hate, and when you're watching a fisheye lens of Jim Carrey trying to perform as a rock star,
Yeah.
you know, it just lends itself to just another sort of level
Yeah.
that you get to regard this, you know, take this movie in with.
And it's a very self-aware movie, so you know where
Yeah.
there are moments where it becomes a parody of itself. There are other moments which are meant to comment on comment on itself as a sequel, as you know, a later installment in a series. So we're floating between those. You get both levels. You get the laughing at and the laughing with.
Right.
Sometimes simultaneously. Because it's not. I always say it's a dumb movie at all. It makes some dumb choices, but it's
Yeah,
not-
right.
But it's relatively sophisticated for what it could be.
But I also think dumb things happen in it.
Yeah. Yes.
But
they
the
do.
movie itself doesn't
No, but I think
reveal
all those,
itself to be dumb. Like it's
and all those
kind of
dumb-
a
all those dumb things are in the Dirty Harry part of the movie. Like
Right.
It's again, like we talked about this with Sudden Impact. There's two films going on here in parallel.
uh-huh.
And I think the Deadpool storyline is, well, you know, it pretty much works the whole way through. The problem is that you know, the Dirty Harry movie that's running alongside it is laughable.
Yeah.
And you've also got the problem that the two of them never cross over. I mean, you talk about one of the stories in the other story, but that's not the same as crossing over, right? It's
Yeah.
like, unless your crimes are misdemeanors, it's like that's the only
Mm-hmm.
that's the only precedent I can think of where that style works. So that's very deliberate. Here it is just we can never make these two ideas of the same movie connect up.
Connect up, right. Well, here's an interesting factoid that I have for you for this movie
Excellent.
that I think you're going to enjoy. So this movie comes out in 1988.
Uh-huh. Is this
The
to
movie-
do with the newly
No.
inaugurated President Bush?
No,
Because that
But-
was on my mind.
but yeah. But this movie was announced in January, started filming in February, and was released in July.
Oh.
That's amazing.
It is amazing. And I don't think it feels like that. That's not something I would guess from seeing the movie.
Right.
I don't feel like... I don't know. Yeah. I feel like you can see that. You know, that's the Airplane 2 kind of feeling.
Right.
When you know, but this is... Oh, interesting. That is so interesting.
Isn't that interesting?
Oh, well, you know, Buddy Van Horn runs a tight ship, clearly.
He must. He knows what he wants.
Do you think... I'm starting to suspect now that maybe he cranked out Any Which Way You Can, like, in the week
Right.
after they wrapped Every Which Way
Every
But
which way
Loose.
but loose. Well, and I mean, even Eastwood himself is very famous as a director for giving the actors very few takes.
Yeah.
He's gonna shoot and move on,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
maybe that's something Buddy Van Horn took from him.
Quite possibly.
Yeah.
Then again, there's only so many ways you can film a remote control toy car leading a car chase. You know?
Exactly.
It's not meant. It kind of limits your artistic options a little bit.
That's an amazing scene. Talk about
It
stupid.
is one of the most. Yeah, we'll get there. One of the most remarkable scenes in modern cinema.
Oh, I love it so much. Well, no cold open.
No, but
We
well,
revert back.
question mark. We have
You
what I
think?
would call a lukewarm open. Because there's a cold open, there's the titles, then a scene
Right.
in the middle.
And then, exactly.
It's a cold open sandwich. We've got the titles, we've got a cold open, and we've got more titles.
More titles.
Now, have you ever seen this before in a movie? I don't think I have.
Right.
I can't think of any other examples of this.
But I feel like, didn't we say something similar to one of the other sequels? I mean, if we've seen it before or something close to it, it was one of the other sequels
Yeah.
in this series.
Yeah. it's a very strange storytelling choice, as I say, with no other precedent
Right.
for doing it.
And also, I mean, I have to talk about this Harry being attacked.
Well, I've got stuff like right from the beginning, so I'm just
Okay,
gonna,
go ahead.
Now that you've skipped to the beginning of the movie. I always start from before the beginning, especially with these movies. My first note is that, you know, in the times that all these movies have been released, including the original Dirty Harry, we've gone full circle on the Warner Brothers logo. It started out with the badge.
You're right.
Went through the brutalist, modernist
Yeah.
design, and now it's gone back to the badge. So that gives you an idea about quite how long these movies have been running.
Been around.
I've mentioned that this is basically the same opening as Sudden Impact, as if each film is now just an episode of the Dirty Harry TV series, right? That's what it kind of feels like. And Lalo Schifrin's kind of taking on a little bit of metal guitar, a little bit of drum machine.
I actually have to say that my first note does say these credits are very 80s.
Yeah, and it's remarkable to me that's you know, Lalo Schifrin's really even in the 5 years that's passed, he's moving with the music of the times, because there's like a metal element in it now. And then, you know, this scene in the middle of this lukewarm open, this apartment scene, just gives us far too many options about what this movie is about. And I've got a list here of what I think this movie
I was just
going to
ask, like, what's your list?
It's either about a race driver, a talk show, horror movies, or mobsters.
That's amazing.
And then we've got our first impasse, almost an inversion of the opening of Sudden Impact. On TV, it's reported that a criminal has been prosecuted and Harry is credited with the arrest. It's like the opposite of how Sudden Impact and most of these movies begin.
Operate, yeah.
Yeah. And then I've caught up with you at the beginning of the movie. Harry being ambushed by machine gun toting mobsters. We're very much picking up the story where we left off.
Amazing. I mean, we've got a car flip. We've got a guy who decides to look into the window, but not really with his gun.
Yeah.
Naturally, he gets his head shot through. And then the most remarkable thing, like my note is, but like Harry Callahan shoots an unarmed man running away. Is there anything more Dirty Harry than that?
No. I've also, I didn't want to, knowing that this was a different director and how much I love Eastwood, I didn't want to prejudge Buddy Van Horn, but minutes into the movie, 2 separate instances of slow motion.
Yeah, right.
It's not looking good.
Yeah.
Um...
Not your favorite.
No. And I think we commented in like an earlier movie. I think it was no. Hang on. Let me try and think of the names of the movies to start with. I think it was in Magnum Force.
Got Magnum Force, the Enforcer.
Harry has a really inconspicuous entrance. Like, you know, you almost don't notice he comes on screen. Here you
when he
notice,
walks in on the scene?
Yeah. Here you notice.
Oh, here yeah. Here it is.
The scene ends with 4 body bags.
Right.
That's how he's being reintroduced in this one, which is not only, like you say, quintessential Dirty Harry, it's also quintessential Clint Eastwood.
Yes.
You know, a scene ends with 4 corpses. a la Fistful of Dollars. And then we have our first note of continuity.
That's what I was just going to say.
The return of Captain Donnelly.
Right.
And this counts as continuity in a series that has really made a meal of this idea of legacy characters and actors. The fact that we're getting him back is a big deal.
Because so many times you think you're getting a character back and you're not. You're just getting the actor back in a different role.
But this is as far as I can tell, this is still Captain Donnelly, played by the same actor, in the same role.
He is known as Captain Donnelly.
Right, there we go. And something strange.
But we're talking about 3 wrecked patrol cars and We got
But something,
fucking love it so much.
But something has definitely changed in the last 5 years because the press are praising Harry. He's getting a commendation. He's part of the police establishment now.
Hmm.
We've never seen this before.
And they want him to work with the press.
Right. Like that. Yeah. Like he's the poster boy of the police. Right. And I can only imagine that this is a like sort of a comment on the end of the Reagan era, the beginning of the Bush era. What Dirty Harry represents is now mainstream thinking, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And is going to be for at least the next 4 years. People would have suspected 8 at the time.
Yes, right,
no one
right.
saw Clinton coming. I mean, partly that, and also, the idea of Clint Eastwood as a part of the Hollywood establishment as well.
Right.
Maybe, like, when you see him on the cover of the magazine. You're
That's
sort of
interesting.
Now dealing with the celebrity version of Dirty Harry, which is, the same, visually the same as Clint Eastwood.
That's amazing. Oh.
But some things don't change, like having a partner who is part of a minority.
Yeah.
And everyone's standing around talking about how he's either going to get brutally injured or die.
Yeah. I mean, that's a given at this point.
It is, yeah. And there's a callback to The Enforcer here because they talk about the press strategy of partnering Harry with a minority again. So it goes back to Tyne Daly and
Tyne Daly.
Mm-hmm. So Al Quan is Harry's new partner.
Yeah. And actually, I think he's a lot of fun in this movie.
He is, yes. I think they maybe could have had. I'm glad that San Francisco. Yeah, I've visited and lived there.
Mm-hmm.
It has a huge Asian community.
Yeah.
Not just, but including a huge Chinese community. So
right.
I'm glad that they're represented here. Probably better ways to handle it than they did.
Yes.
Through the prism of martial arts. And
martial arts only.
Triads and fireworks. But
tattoos.
It's definitely a step in the right direction.
Yeah.
I don't know how many steps forward versus steps back, but
yeah. Noted.
Let's just call it, let's just call it quits. Let's just say
right.
They're doing the right thing, probably not in the right way.
Right, and we'll quit while we're ahead.
And it's about here we get to
Jim Carrey. Yeah.
Or James Carrey.
Yes, right.
I've blown one of my credit check items there, but
So one of my notes is that Jim Carrey in this movie can manage to, it's like you see the funny man.
Yes.
Being as funny as he's ever been while he's taking on a serious role.
Right, which you associate with the later Jim Carrey of the Eternal Sunshine era.
Yeah.
Or the Truman Show. Or Man on the Moon. I mean,
But it's like you can see the veneer of the shtick underneath everything he does.
It's remarkable how fully formed
Yes.
Jim Carrey comes into the world of cinema, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a star-making turn, it really is. And I believe that even Eastwood clocked it on set.
Yeah, right.
Did you hear that
I did.
Story? Yeah. So, up to screen time,
mm-hmm.
While Buddy Van Horn had a cigarette, or I don't know what.
I'm going to do some rewrites tonight.
Go outside and have a cigarette, buddy.
But this, I mean, it's also a very confusing sequence.
It is.
Because at some point you get the sense that they're filming a music video.
But it's not.
Or a musical scene in a horror film.
Right.
And it is both and neither.
Right, exactly.
But there is, I mean, it's kind of interesting, like, this stuff really happened in horror movies, right? There was Alice Cooper doing like a music video tie-in to one of the Friday the 13th movies. There's that Swedish band who did the Nightmare songs.
Right.
There's Freddy's, the Will Smith Freddy rap. So I mean, I actually think all of what's kind of interesting about this is like the representation of the media and movies in particular here is all based on
shit that actually happened,
if not real events,
or was around the era. You know?
Like if not real events, then equivalent events and or kind of movie lore.
Yeah.
So that part of it is fascinating. Also, you know, I made a big deal about how this series is kind of like processing new tropes in horror cinema.
Mm-hmm.
And here we're making a horror movie.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty definitive statement on the relationship between the series and horror.
And horror.
The movie Hotel Satan. And that, you know, it's interesting that sequence kind of, well, not quite that whole sequence, but after James Carey is, you know, overdoses,
right?
We see there's a great shot of Harry watching the movie being shot, and I was like, this could be Clint Eastwood's director headshot, you know. But clearly, the movie's making reference to the fact that Clint Eastwood's a film director.
Yeah.
And, you know, Liam Neeson as the horror movie director in this scene is throwing around a lot of, you know, cinematic jargon like homage and, you know, it's like a metatextual treatise on movie direction and also convergence. They're talking about how music videos and horror movies are kind of interdependent in the current economy. It's like, it's not like, this is what I mean, it's like not dumb shit.
It's not dumb shit.
What they're talking about is both real and interesting.
Well, and I also drew a comparison because 88, we're right in the wheelhouse of a very popular television series called Hunter with Fred Dryer. Mm-hmm. And Fred Dryer was like the television version of Harry Callahan.
Right.
And if we go back to Mike's memories and think of the very first episode of Hunter... It was kind of like this. Yeah. It wasn't a list, but it was like a serial killer. He was on a motorcycle. You know, the veneer of it was like we're not seeing him, like we're not seeing this killer for so long. And I mean, I was just having like a flood of memories of how much this movie was like that. Mm-hmm. And it reminded me so much of that.
Yeah, this movie feels like it's got its finger on the button of what's going on in media of the time, both referentially and self-reflexively. Mm-hmm. And then there are numerous instances in this movie where I think it's sort of ahead of the game as well, which is just kind of like to what, you know,
strange
to what our media would become. Which, you know, you don't normally get those depths in a movie that is decidedly average.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, it's still not enough to change my mind that this is a good movie. Or
me either. But it makes for one interesting bird of a movie, I gotta tell you.
It is.
Well, I think we're off to a good start. Why don't we take a break and we'll come back?
Definitely.
After a
little platypus of a movie.
Yeah, after one quality message. Right after this, everyone.
I like to think I know something about beer, but nowadays even I get overwhelmed when confronted by the exhaustive selection of craft beers they have at bars, breweries, and even grocery stores. Back in the day you had one, maybe two craft beers to choose from, and if you were confused, you ordered a Guinness. But in beerstinations like San Diego, the craft beer options lately are in double, sometimes even triple digits. So what's a beer drinker to do? You need what I need, the Vegas Beer Guys. Your beer of choice should be a perfect blend of malt and hops. And so a live show about beer needs that same balance. And the Vegas Beer Guys matches beer expert Dan Aker with self-proclaimed beer novice Stephen J. Weiss. The results are eminently drinkable. They're on Facebook. They're on Instagram. They'll try new beers. They'll tell you about beer. Think of them as your beer Sherpas guiding you up a foamy-headed mountain to reach the peak of your pint. God, I need a beer.
And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. Tom and I are here discussing, as we said, this platypus of a movie, The Deadpool, from 1988, directed by one Buddy Van Horn.
I'll revise that. This movie is like two Doug Blow
Yeah,
platypuses
you're right.
running alongside each other at more
It's
or
a
less
race.
the same speed, chasing a toy car.
Well, if anything, this movie has everything.
You could put that on the poster.
Right?
I don't think it's what I don't know if what you meant is what that means, but I'd be happy to put that as the tagline for my movie.
It really
If
does.
anything, this movie has everything.
I
Kind of in the what's the name of the Bill Hader character, the club promoter on SNL?
Stefan, yeah.
Stefan.
Yeah.
This movie has everything.
Yeah, exactly.
And then a list of things that you don't
That you
want.
don't want to see, hear, or do. Yeah, I mean it's so, you know, as we said,
Dan Cortez.
what's that?
Dan Cortez. I think he was a recurring feature in that list. Sorry, Carrie.
I forgot about that. Oh my god.
A work of genius.
My favorite part was that Mulaney, who would write with him for that character, would always try to put something in that he didn't know about just to make him laugh.
That's why he had his hands over his mouth the entire time, because he was.
Well,
on the
and
verge of
to be honest, I think that
breaking
was
up.
more reflexive because of his nervousness, and so because he's
Yeah.
a very angsty performer.
Yeah.
And so I remember him saying that's how it started with Stefan, was just bringing his hands to his face because he was always so nervous, and it just worked.
Yes.
But we move on. we move on to more Dirty Harry and the Deadpool. You know, like I said earlier, though, I mean, we have Liam Neeson, who's basically supposed to be like the scapegoat. But do you ever truly believe
No.
that he's, you know what I mean?
I know. Sorry, I should have waited for you to ask the question, but I already know the answer. No, I mean, I don't know. Maybe, and I don't mean this to be insulting or condescending or racist. I think it is, but I think it will turn out to be. But you know, maybe I don't know. Well, I'll ask you. You're an American.
Mm-hmm.
Could you not tell that one of the two actors doing British accent was really British, and the guy who supposedly has the real British accent has the worst of the two accents?
Right.
So but however it comes out, there's no way you'd think that these two people are the same people. They have different voices.
Yeah.
Not to mention dialects, or two different takes on the same dialect, so they're clearly two different
Two
people.
different-
Also, the movie would be over about a quarter of the way through
Yes.
if it was this guy.
Yeah, exactly.
So, no, I mean, I'm never fooled by it, and I feel like this is one area where you could spread the wealth a little bit, as you know, if you were doing like a real whodunit, which is what this movie cries out to be.
Mm-hmm.
You could Agatha Christie it and have 5 or 6 different suspects, but we never get to that
Right.
point. It's just two different guys with ponytails.
Exactly.
One of whom wants to be the other guy.
Yeah. Side note for filmmakers, ponytails, not that menacing.
No.
They don't instill
maybe
fear.
they were in '88 though. I don't know.
Maybe they were thinking,
Or maybe they are to the viewers of this series.
maybe they
I
were
mean.
trying to Seagal it.
Well, I think I don't know. This is a traditionally anti-hippie series, so maybe
Right.
it's actually a must that the killer should have long hair.
Yes, exactly. Well, and in addition, I think you referenced before we went on break, we find Jim Carrey dead. We have cops. Well, it wouldn't be a 1980s movie without somebody having some sort of latent fear of homosexuality when they call a murder a homicide.
Yes. Indeed.
And then we have Callahan attacking a cameraman's camera.
Right. And this is I think this is an important sort of turn in the movie. This is again where things are different now, because.
But he's supposed to be the champion of the press now, and then he.
Right. So my I don't know what you think about this, but upon watching this movie, I think the police as an institution now are off the hook.
Mm-hmm.
It's now the
because
press
of
who are the
because of the era we're in.
I think
Yeah.
so. I think that's got a lot to do with it. And maybe it's also, just a little bit of an inversion, because in every Dirty Harry movie so far, including the original, there's an individual villain and then there's an institutional villain. And the institutional villain has always been the police up to this point. And only in this movie is it the press. The individual villain changes from movie to movie. It kind of like it ping pongs back and forth between radicals and.
Well, in Magnum Force, it's kind of both.
It's one and the same, yeah. Which is why that movie is brilliant. Yeah. What a brilliant idea. But in this movie, we've changed the terms of that again, and it's now the institutional enemy is the press or the media at large, and the individual enemy is a kind of a writer of fan fiction.
Right. Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but this was a big, for 1988, this was a big surprise to me to see this kind of character as the serial killer in the movie, because I think of Annie Wilkes as the first articulation of the fan serial killer.
Oh, that's interesting.
I didn't realize it went back even further with that. And this one is there's an extent to which you can say Annie Wilkes, there's a scene where she comes up and says, "Here's how you bring misery back from the grave." So she's sort of a fan fiction writer in some senses. But it's very much James Caan is writing the book under duress.
Yeah, of course.
But here this is a fan who has his own script that he wants to get made, that he claims is the work of Liam Neeson's character.
Yeah, right.
Because he is inspired by him, therefore it is his work, therefore he should make his work. And I got to tell you, this is exactly what's wrong with fandom today. There are people out there who think they have they own the intellectual property of the things they like to watch and listen to.
Right.
And that is what this guy is all about. And in a way, it's, I don't know, is it more sophisticated than Annie Wilkes? It kind of is, because at least looked at through a 2022 lens, in the wake of ongoing toxic fandom in communities like Star Wars,
right?
And Star Trek.
Well, and it's interesting because when you take Annie Wilkes, and if we put out this hypothesis or a theory about this character, and is this a higher branch off of the Annie Wilkes? Because on the other side of it, I'm just remembering this era, because on the other side of it, say in 1992, you have The Bodyguard. It's another fans kind of killer.
Absolutely, yeah.
But just a fan. No creation within that.
And yes.
You know what I mean? So it's like a denouement. It's like it reaches a climax and comes down.
I mean,
in cinema itself.
Yeah, he's not a killer, but I'd go all the way back to Rupert Pupkin.
No.
In King of Comedy.
Yeah. It's funny you say that, because I was just talking about that movie with Matt for the 1982 project.
Oh, I wish we could talk. I wish we could talk about that movie. I mean, you talk about hitting modern media on the
Yeah.
nail on the head 40 years before it became relevant. But yeah, I mean, he's a fan creator, a fan producer, I think is the academic term, and it's like, Jesus Christ, this is a little too close to home.
Right. I'm starting to get a little sweat on the brow.
I know. I'm looking at Facebook posts about Moses Ingram, and I'm reading my notes back for the Deadpool. I'm like, Jesus Christ, they had it. They knew in '88 that this was going to happen.
I mean, that's another tick in the column of righteousness for this movie, isn't it? It makes it
really
interesting.
And it's sort of like at this point where you're deep down the rabbit hole of what this movie is doing that is really good and interesting. You're like, what's it gonna take for this movie to fall short of being a good movie? And of course, the answer is remote control toy car.
Yes, of course.
And Harry's house.
And well, I was gonna say
Well,
we might have
we'll
to
get
save
there,
it
but
for the end, but
yeah, I'm just going to say this is not us talking ourselves into saying this is a good movie. We're saying you have to do something monumentally
ridiculous.
terrible
Yeah.
twice over to not make this a good movie, and they did.
And they did it. And they're also, I think somewhere actually in the narrative that right around where we're talking about right now, was it Harry? Was he working in a weight room? I just remember that there's a scene right around this time where somebody's working out in a weight room, and if you look behind where all the actors are,
they're filming Superman 4: The Quest for Peace.
Basically, because none of them are using any weights. Like,
well, that explains. Well,
the machines where you can click down on the weights, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
They're all on the top, and they're all just sort of working really hard with like 10 pounds. Like nobody's actually using any of the weights. It's hysterical to watch.
It is. Well, I mean, they got to get it in the can by July.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
We've no time for actual weights.
I don't want you losing any of your strength on these shots. You understand?
I think it's a bit later on, but there's also a scene that asks us to believe that Harry's strength outdoes that of a martial arts expert half his age.
Yeah.
Like, we have a scene where they're jogging and Alquan just can't keep up with this geriatric man.
Exactly, this extremely old person.
After we've shown that this guy is, a superb physical athlete.
Right.
It's around about this time that Patricia Clarkson and Clint Eastwood have
dinner after they foil the Chinatown crime, right?
And this is like in the second half of the series. Well, basically, since the Enforcer, Harry has to have a love interest. Well, I guess it's in Magnum Force too, have a love interest, but like a serious relationship love interest. He's had one in every movie since the Enforcer, if you count.
I was gonna say
what they were gonna do before she was machine gunned to death,
right?
On Alcatraz. So this is kind of like, this is not
when
like
you say it so starkly like that, it makes me. I think it was designed just to make me change my mind.
No, not at all. Hey, you've made your choices. You've made your bed. But that's like something. It's not like a convention of the series, but it's sort of come to be that by the time we get to this point.
Interesting.
And it's the heart again. It's like, feels like the heart of the movie. They're both great. They're both great with each other. Like, it's
right.
There's some nice physical interplay. Clarkson's tiny, Clint Eastwood's huge. It makes for like nice character moments. Not to mention that I think this is the most beautiful you will ever see Patricia Clarkson.
I was gonna say, like,
she is absolutely. I actually don't remember her being this stunning in the Untouchables, so maybe it is just.
Oh, I do.
She just came out of the.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess like she just walked out the door. It's like, this is hot as I'm ever gonna be, everyone.
Yeah, but I'm gonna be that hot forever. Like,
Well, I know she's still beautiful and beautiful for many years, but something, I don't know, there's something about her in this movie that I find so intoxicating.
Because there's this movie, but I do remember her from The Untouchables as well, and I specifically remember her, like, every time she's on screen, she's just glowing.
Yeah. And again, we get more sort of metatextual stuff. She says you can't kill the messenger because of the message. Paraphrasing Marshall McLuhan on television. God, this movie's more interesting than you might think for a 1988 Dirty Harry movie.
Yeah.
Especially, and I have to bring this up. This is such a stupid thing, but I have to bring this up. He must have grown his hair out between shooting the poster for this movie, unless it's just a general headshot that they used, and making the movie, because I was prepared for his hair to be super short, and he's still got a little bit of the Dirty Harry bouffant here. And something about when you see all those posters together, like on HBO Max, when you see it go, and by the last one he's not got any hair. Basically, it kind of depresses, and then you see the movie. It's like, oh no, he's got hair.
Yeah,
it's okay.
Yeah, right.
I don't know why that makes me so like. But when you see that poster, your heart sinks. It's like, oh my god, I'm gonna have. But it's actually, that is not the problem with this movie at all.
No, yeah. The movie has plenty of other problems, but his hair's not one of them.
No, his hair's not one of them. We have, again, like, an example of how these movies are sort of developing in parallel. He thinks he's gonna get attacked by the mob, but they turn out to be autograph hunters.
Right.
And then they flip it, so he actually does get attacked by the mob about a minute later. So it's like, this would have been a good opportunity, guys, to merge those two movies together. And then he goes to San Quentin, and this is the scene I'm talking about, where, he's talking to someone. Gennaro. My note is he visits Gennaro. Lone black child on the car. I noticed that outside the gates of San Quentin. A not insignificant image in the early George H. Bush era. And it's like he talks about the other movie. It's like, you still haven't put these two movies together. Exactly. They're still separate movies. And after this, we get the film critic being killed. And didn't you have a story about
this is what I was going to bring up, because... all right. This is where...
Because critics are mentioned in the last movie.
Critics are mentioned in the last movie. A critic is murdered in this movie.
Correct, yeah. It's up the ante, like all
sequels. Like all sequels, the ante is up. But this is like basically an inside joke.
Clearly.
You know Pauline Kael.
I certainly do.
All right. Now, as I understand it, Clint Eastwood earlier in his career, and maybe with the early Dirty Harry films, at some point, I think, complained to the New York Times that Pauline Kael was like giving him bad reviews because she was secretly in love with him, and...
Didn't she write for the New Yorker?
Or maybe that's right, New Yorker.
Okay, yeah.
And he was not willing to go down that avenue with her, and so she's giving him shitty reviews. Which they,
it's not her. I don't think it's her kind of movie, to be perfectly honest. But
yeah,
she would have given them anyway, I think.
But I just thought it was hysterical that, like, years later, basically, the reviewer in this movie is supposed to be Pauline Kael, and they just wanted to murder her because they wanted her gone and dead.
Yeah, you can see it coming. Again, it's like it's a shift in this movie towards the metatextual, because in previous movies we kind of act out conservative fantasies,
right? Yeah,
of law enforcement. This is acting out a film director's wish fulfillment, isn't it?
It's like truly remarkable. Talking about murdering a film critic.
Yeah. This is the part of Eastwood that's a film director, not a Republican.
Exactly. Just kills me.
And you know, this like again, this what really shocked me is how like studied and detailed their representation of the film industry is here. We're using actual clips from horror films that include David Warner. I don't know what the film is they've got, but they've obviously got David Warner's approval to be in the movie. I mean, I hope they paid him, because he was hard up for a while after one of his divorces.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Huh.
Well, no, I mean, he tells the story, like some interviewer asked him, you know, where's the head from The Omen?
Mm-hmm.
And he said, I lost it in the divorce.
Oh my god. That seems rather petty. And I want that head.
Oh, come on. If you were married to David Warner, that's the first thing you'd ask for. Okay, so we've got the guy's next thing I've got is guy setting himself on fire.
Yeah, I said Mr. Wheeler. Mr. Wheeler tries to set himself on fire.
And this is again like Harry posing as a cameraman. Each movie has to have Harry playing some kind of role.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like he's in an improv class.
It's like his airplane pilot.
It's his airplane pilot, and what did he do in The Enforcer? He pretended to be like a brothel.
Yes,
visitor.
right. He went undercover. He was a John.
Does he do it in Sudden Impact? Does he go undercover there?
I don't remember. No, I don't think so.
No, I don't think so.
But I just know that, I mean, Harry Callahan, and, you know, stay tuned, I assume, for both of our pitches, but Harry Callahan can't walk 5 feet in this city without stumbling upon a crime. And some of my notes are, why are all these armed criminals, they always have no plan as they're robbing banks, restaurants, and delis. And then he, you know, of course he walks 5 more steps and happens upon a man who wants to light himself on fire.
But that's more because Patricia Clarkson's there.
Right.
And that's what I found interesting about this scene is like he feels like a lame duck at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Because he doesn't really if you break that scene down, what does he really do that changes anything in that scene?
Harry, you mean? Yeah.
Patricia Clarkson is the one who like talks the guy down, and he does it anyway.
Yeah.
You know, he's going undercover, but he's not saving the day. He's making a lot of, you know, he's made some good one-liners out of it, but he's not actually done anything concrete in this scene. And this is, you know, obviously
he is getting up there in age.
Yeah, obviously this is part of it there being 2 different movies going on here. But it's also a sense of like, you know, as I said before, we're putting Harry out to pasture.
I'm trying to remember, was the killer in the crowd kind of watching this? Or no?
I don't have a note for that. It's possible.
Okay, I don't remember.
Yeah, no, I think he might have been. We finally circle back to the talk show host that we saw in the lukewarm open.
Yeah.
Over halfway into the movie, I might add. And this is the kind of, and this is, you know, it's a very self-referential screenplay. We're getting some franchise fatigue here because Al Quan keeps making a bunch of jokes and Harry keeps anticipating the punchlines. Like, well, come on, guys. I mean, there's no more life here. I think we've said it before, when characters complete each other's phrases in scripts, it's a sure sign that we're getting bored with the series.
Yeah.
And that's exactly
well,
what
and
I feel
you
like
know,
here.
well, I'll save it because I don't think we're there yet, but because we still have the remote control car.
Well, I think this is where it starts.
Yeah.
This is the first time we see the tiny toy car with a remote control bomb.
Yeah.
And there is, I hate to say this, but there's nothing inaccurate about that statement. It's not a typo.
Right.
I did not misspeak.
It's exactly what happens.
It reminds me of what you said about Batman and Robin. Like, we've gone so far
Right.
from the original footprint.
Yeah.
Blueprint, sorry, not foot. Like, we've gone so far from the original Blueprint. And if you think about, this, you go from like the I don't know, any scene in Dirty Harry, let's say the "Do you feel lucky" punk scene, to this.
Yeah, right.
You wouldn't believe it was the same
Yes.
series.
I mean, it includes, kids using their remote controlled shit of the same frequency, which frustrates the killing ability of our serial killer.
Oh man, it is.
It frustrates him enough that he has to like pick up the car and like take and follow him in a real car.
Yeah.
And then he's too excited when he finally gets close enough to use the remote controlled car that it goes in front of Harry's car.
Well, I mean, the first
And then
time we
Harry
see it,
remembers
it
seeing that little wheel, Tom. His detective fucking brain is working.
This is yeah, and again, a far cry from purposefully losing a tournament so he can get access
Exactly.
to ballistic evidence. You even have the line, "I don't know, it's the wheel from a toy or something." Because first of all, it's used to bomb an old man in tiny shorts.
Yes, right.
Just not helping with the grittiness.
The gritty realism.
And then, and you sort of think, at the time you think, that's the last we're going to see of that remote control car.
Nope.
Surely. But no, it's just the beginning. Because we have a car chase that's led by a toy. I really do think when we're reviewing history and the terms that we've come up with to describe certain aspects of media culture, like for instance, jump the shark,
Yeah,
or
right.
nuke the fridge. There's got to be space for
Right?
remote control toy car.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's, I have noticed this is the nadir of the series. You can't take it seriously from this point onwards. It's not even well done. I don't know what that would look like, but it's not this.
That's what I was just going to say. I was going to say, how do you do it well, Tom?
Well, I have some, but I even have notes on this scene.
Of how to do it better?
Well, first of all, I was like, why is everybody reacting in fear to this toy car?
Right.
Like, at most, no one knows the context.
Yeah.
So anyone who sees it on the street would either be, 1, mildly annoyed, or 2, happy.
Yeah,
Like,
marveling.
I saw this remote control car whizzing down the street.
Chasing another car.
On my way to work. It really brightened up my day. Or you'd be like, no, it's getting under my feet. You don't know it's a bomb. But the worst part of this sequence, for me at least, is when they decide that this is the moment to do their bullet homage. Right? Because they do the jumping over the
Yes.
the hill
Right.
the hill roads of
San Francisco,
that
sure.
we saw
And it goes on for a long time.
I mean, there's just no way to class up this concept.
Yes.
This scene needs to cut its losses, arguably before it began, but certainly after a couple of minutes. This is not a cut. I mean, this is this is our car chase, our car chase set piece for the movie,
Mm-hmm.
and compare it to every other equivalent set piece in the previous movies.
It
There's a
pales
big
by
gap
comparison, of course.
here. Yeah. Not to mention that it
I was
ends with.
Just gonna say.
Go on,
yeah.
go on. I'll
Well,
let you
just
say
I
it,
mean,
I'll-
again, we're bringing in Harry's detective brain. So he backs himself into an alley. He's got nowhere to go, which is a sad way for like a 4-hour car chase with a toy car to end. And then the toy car goes underneath the car, and he just reverses it so that he can back up, 5-6 feet before it explodes, so that it just explodes the engine in front and not him and his partner in the car seats.
Well, that's what the movie tells you.
That's what
happens.
counts as brilliance on his detective brain part, you know?
I mean, that explosion would instantly kill whoever was ever in the car.
Anywhere. Yeah, anyone near.
Yeah. Harry survives because it's a Dirty Harry movie and no other
Right.
reason. And Alquan is injured.
Because he's his partner.
Because he's a partner and the only other option is killing
Yeah.
him.
Well, enough said. Maybe we should take a break and let ourselves take a breather and come back. How about that?
The only other car chase it reminds me of in the history of cinema is in the Takeshi Kitano film Sonatine, where they have a car chase in the middle of it that is purposely choreographed to be the worst possible car chase you can think of. So you have stuff like the windscreen wipers start going off randomly and stuff like that. That's what this is like, but they're going for exactly the opposite. They think this is
I haven't
cool.
seen that. I got to see that.
It's fantastic. It's like if you imagine a car chase where it's just nothing but people reversing and doing U-turns, and just like I've gone down an alleyway, I've got to get myself back, and slowly edge out of.
Oh, that's amazing.
Of the alleyway, and windscreen wipers keep going. It's fantastic.
All right.
But that was on purpose.
This is not. Yeah. It's so good. It's one of those anomalies that you want to shake your fist at, but you also kind of think it's sweet and endearing and how stupid it is.
It's definitely sweet. It's definitely sweet and endearing. But also, you just can't, and also you can't believe it's happening for as long as it's happening.
It's amazing. All right, everyone, we're going to take a break and then we'll be right back right after this. If you like podcasts like I do, boy, do I have a treat for you. You need to
stay on target
and check out the Sounds in Cinema podcast. Listen as your host, sound designer and music creator Tony Parham, and co-host, musical performer and sound lover Derek Hansen, D-Rock if you're nasty, and I am, discuss all things sound related to film, television, stage, and theatrical productions. They discuss environmental sounds, bioacoustics, dialogue, the nature of communication through sound, but as an added bonus, they drink beer and try to
stay on target.
Find them wherever you get your podcasts and listen to the pure mania of a man who can charitably be described as Doug, the dog from Up, and another man with a soothing and sultry voice trying to get that man to
stay on target.
That's the Sounds in Cinema podcast. Tune in and listen to the sounds they are creating just for you. We're back once again, everyone. Tom and I are here, wrapping up the Deadpool. The 1988 film we just finished with the delicious toy car chase.
We did. Which is somehow not the low point of the
Right?
movie. That is yet to come. I've got another note here about the scene with and maybe this speaks to, rushing through the filming a little bit, but the scene where he talks to the police psychiatrist. I feel like that's a missed opportunity. Like,
right. Right.
In previous films, that would have been fodder for, like, satire.
It would have been more, yeah.
Liberalism.
They
right?
would have been. They would have made more out of it.
But Harry seems to listen to what this guy has to say and take it seriously.
Know, right?
It's like, this movie's getting soft on the justice system. Never mind. Never mind the justice system itself.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Well, and
So
then
I
you
think,
have, because right now we're also in the point, I seem to recall, right now the movie's going to tell the audience what the audience already knew 10 minutes into the movie about Liam Neeson, that he's not a suspect.
Right.
And he's going to give an interview saying on TV that he's not a suspect, that the actual killer's going to be watching, and then the killer's going to attack his own apartment.
To play devil's advocate,
yes,
is it possible that this movie thought you would suspect Liam Neeson's character more because of what?
Because he's British.
Conservatives. Definitely that. But because that's what conservative thinks about the people who make those kind of movies, that they're essentially amoral.
Oh,
Because this is the era of the video nasty.
yeah, right.
All that kind of discourse around promoting violence
And what
in
it
horror
does to our
movies.
children.
Yeah. I wonder whether that's the smokescreen that they're which most of us
Won't
have
someone please think about the children?
Right, but most of us, even on the on the right, have talked ourselves out of
Yeah.
issue. So
No,
Maybe
I
it
mean, it's
seems
making a comeback. It's like we're still talking
Okay.
about that right now in this
Okay.
moment, at least on the right.
Mhm. Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe that's the given what we know about Eastwood and his politics, maybe that is
Perhaps.
part of the smokescreen.
Perhaps.
But
But like I said, the audience
on a plot
knows.
level, no, you would never.
and it just
True, yeah.
makes me laugh that I guess because the movie is telling us that the killer is sure that he's setting up Liam Neeson well. So well that he's super pissed when he finds out that that's not the case, and he, just destroys his entire apartment.
Devil's Advocate 2.
Go.
Is that a comment on fan fiction?
Maybe, yeah, I don't know. Maybe. You never know with this movie.
That's right. Is it the same impulse that is like, this is as good as the kind of movie you make because it's inspired by
Right.
you? You know what I mean?
Oh, that's good shit.
But you're not wrong. You're not wrong. It is.
Just-
Again, in a we were talking just off air. We were talking about this. Like, I can see you can. I don't know what the background of this script is, but it very much feels like like a script that called The Deadpool that was floating around
Yeah.
Hollywood, couldn't raise money. Everyone knew it was a good idea, but no one was willing to put up money for it. And Clint Eastwood became
Right, and then
interested,
we
but the
said,
condition was that
Clint's interested.
but it had to be a Dirty Harry
Right.
movie, and at that point, that makes it difficult for you to do the kind of plot turns you need to do in a movie like this,
Mhm.
because you have to devote so much screen time to what we're doing with the Harry character and persona in this movie,
Right.
which is not something you have to worry about if this was just the Deadpool. It was just these characters and this story.
True.
So I don't know if that's how it turned out, but it's such a great idea it's such a great idea for a whole movie, not just half a movie.
Yes.
And I think that's the problem. here.
I'm just looking at my notes again, going back to that remote car chase. My note was, this is extra dumb with sugar on top.
Yeah.
Love it.
I mean, and again, you can see like the screenwriter, in the reading that redraft,
Yeah,
exactly. that version of it. It's like, so what's going on?
Can I just ask you? I got a question or two.
Well, my kid has one of those, and
He loves it.
we've got to get this in the can by July.
And I remember remote controlled like little planes and stuff being a thing, but earlier in the 80s. Like the beginning of the 80s.
Well, I'm gonna say the first thing that comes to my mind is like it's like a kind of Seco thing, right? Where you're just like, it's technology that's there for its own.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, for its own sake. It's not got nothing to do with the rest of the movie, and I think there's an aspect of that. So you just you can almost read in, you could almost like imagine what is going on with someone. There's just there's like a the pyrotechnic guy just really likes the idea of having a remote control car, and it goes from there.
Right. It's funny because I'm really starting to like ponder on this idea of where Clint is in his political life now, because one of like a note I have right here that says the movies did it to me, Your Honor. And that was such a common refrain then. And that seems to be what's going on with this particular killer. You know? It's really hard to separate Clint from his, like, some of the work we see in his films from his political aspirations and who he is.
But in this movie, but because of the way that the fan killer is depicted, I think it's more. It is blaming Hollywood, but it's about the sort of bitterness of trying to get your break in Hollywood that drives into it. It's not screen violence that does it. That's just a smokescreen.
That's interesting.
And one of the things you can always say in defense of Clint Eastwood is that his movies don't have the kinds of easy answers that he comes up with in his political life.
Right.
I think this is another. Like, I don't, well, I don't know if I mentioned this before, but someone will explain to me the conservative subtext of a Clint Eastwood movie I really like, and it's kind of undeniable. But when I watch the movie, I still can't see it, even though the rational part of my brain should know. Like the end of The Outlaw Josie Wales, like the ending of The Outlaw Josie Wales, one of my favorite endings to any movie, because it seems to advocate, non-violent resistance is the solution to everything.
Right.
But if you rephrase that scene, you say he waited until the enemy drew his weapon and then used his weapon to stab him with them. If a guy breaks into your house in the middle of the night,
okay.
You know what I mean? It's like you can shoot him. So,
but he's it's just interesting because he'd already started his political career at this time. I think he was mayor of Carmel by the Sea in '86.
Again, though, I doubt
which is also amazing. The fact that he's
on a day-to-day basis.
I know.
Besides, stop things happening.
I guess, but shouldn't he have enough to do without leaving the town to go make movies? That's astonishing to me.
Paul Russ tells a story about his film studies lecturer, when they discussed Unforgiven.
Mm-hmm.
He said, or as Clint Eastwood might call it, rehab is for quitters. And I both love and hate that one because it's absolutely
completely accurate.
And then the other one is it ruins what is one of my favorite movies and a movie that I think of as complex.
Yes.
So this is always the problem. I mean, I know he's not directing here, which, kind of makes this all redundant, but I can still see levels and layers to what the politics of this movie is.
Mm-hmm.
Again, but that's a temporary state of being, because he is about to emerge from some smoke wielding a harpoon.
I mean,
like Captain fucking Ahab.
Yeah, it's within the confines of the narrative. For those listening, if it matters, Patricia Clarkson has been kidnapped. Okay. So there you have it. And out comes Harry Callahan. He doesn't have the clip gun.
We're at the docks because we're at the end of a
Because
Dirty
we're
Harry
at the
movie.
end of a Dirty. I was just gonna say, where else the fuck would we be? But I mean, there's really nothing that says more about the Dirty Harry series than that fucking harpoon gun.
How so?
Just in the sense of there's always a kind of a gimmick gun.
Well, yeah, but
we have the hardware guest of the week every movie,
You're not.
We have a rocket launcher.
Yeah.
We have his original .44 Magnum. We have the rocket launcher. Then we have, I think, is still kind of a .44 Magnum, but it's a clip gun instead of a revolver.
It's got a drinks holder on it.
Exactly.
Rust proofing.
It's got a place to put your coins.
A DVD player.
Yeah. And so you're doing that. You're doing the sequel thing of upsmanship, but as we've referenced several times in this episode, I mean, this is like Naked Gun level satire.
You know, you're
It's
absolutely right.
hysterical.
My notes are pretty much word for word what you said, that we're doing what we always do, which is to up the ante on the size and the force of Harry's
Yeah.
gun. But by picking a harpoon, a sea weapon, right? A whaling weapon, shall we say? It's also absurd. It's absurd and laughable. And again, you know, instead of jump the shark or nuke the fridge, what about Harry's harpoon?
Right.
He really
Harry harpooned that.
Yeah, it's just another laugh out loud moment that makes it hard to take seriously. But it's, I don't know, is it worse that it's within the logic of the series? I think it's kind of makes it worse.
Mm-hmm.
Just like just the fact that, you know, you want a good car chase in a Dirty Harry movie, and what you get is a remote control toy car.
Yeah, right.
Just like here, you want this to be the biggest and the best gun.
I mean, you want that.
that you've ever seen in the series,
Yeah.
and it is.
Yeah. Right. They didn't fail in that.
No, they didn't feel. Just be careful what you wish for, because that might be a harpoon.
And I think I'm right when I say, as he races it, we go back to slow motion, don't we?
Yeah. And well, I guess the other thing that's hard to take is that he then reclaims his Magnum.
Mm-hmm.
I really like the idea that this movie would end with him losing his Magnum. Because
it's
you
the
know,
last
there's that
one?
line. Yeah, because the last one, and he says, and you know, they say, "Time's up, hero."
Yeah.
And it's like that would, but so, and you know, I like
All of this, by the
you know,
way, in terms of the cop of it, the one thing that Harry says right before he does harpoon the villain is he tells him, "You're out of bullets." That's the moment as a cop when you're not allowed to shoot them.
Yeah, but there's nothing in there about a harpoon. Imagine someone finding it's like, what the fuck was this guy shot with? And so I like the showmanship of, I like everything until he actually comes out of the smoke. I love him being a silhouette in the smoke.
Right.
Carlo Sheffrin does a really good job of putting some Morricone notes in the music
yeah.
at that point. He waiting out the lack of bullets. Again, that feels like something from a spaghetti western.
Sure.
But but it's just, it's like if the movie, if we've never seen him come out of the smoke, that would have been a better movie.
It would, if you rolled credits right there.
Or you never saw it. You never saw what gun it was that he shot with, and then he gets his Magnum back. He does the little gunslinger spin.
Yeah.
Because I like that. I like that moment too. Because, you know, at this point in the series, we're on a precipice of. This probably is the last one, but we want Harry to leave as if he could do another one. I think that's the sort of feeling I get.
Right.
Because he finds the Magnum again. He does the gunslinger spin. It kind of, you know, there's a feeling that a gauntlet has been passed. I know the gauntlet is the name.
I was gonna say.
That's and then you
smack
walk it
dab
back,
in the middle of the Sandra Locke years.
which is a trick that they pull in Crystal Skull as well. You know, he looks like he's going to pass on the hat.
Don't remind me.
And then Harrison Ford. That's one of my favorite moments of the movie. Harrison Ford's face as he takes that hat back.
No, you're right.
Shia
You're right
LaBeouf
about
in the
that.
eyes
Yes.
And says, "Fuck you."
If anybody should get a fuck you, it's certainly Shia.
You got that GIF is great of Harrison Ford putting his hat back
Yeah.
on and looking Shia LaBeouf in the eyes, giving him a shit-eating grin. And it's kind of the same here. So, and it's that sort of feeling. It's like this will only ever be Clint Eastwood doing this,
Yeah, right.
but he might not do it again.
Yeah.
And then he has another James Bond one-liner.
Right.
He's hanging out back there. And then we get, thankfully, a reporter who comes in and asks a question that summarizes both parts of the movie in one. Like, great, all solved. That's all tied up in a neat little package. And then the movie...
Who are you? Where are you going? Oh, do your research. Kent
Exactly.
Brockman.
We've made so many Simpsons references in relation to just the Dirty
Yeah, I
Harry
know.
series. It makes me think that maybe this was more of an inspiration for the Simpsons than
anything
Matt
else,
Groening's own,
right?
Matt Groening's own family, maybe. And then, you know, the movie ends how all these movies end. With a crane
shot.
First of all,
Pulling away from a dock.
This and a movie in the next series that we're going to do. Stay tuned.
Mm-hmm.
Both made me think the same thing. How do you turn a crane shot into a helicopter?
Yeah.
I don't actually know physically how you do. Like, is there a
helicopter
in my head, there's
hovering
a cameraman
low?
running into a helicopter? And then what? Detaching the crane from beneath him? I like what? How do you do it? It's fun. So if anyone knows, if anyone's out there in the film, you know, who is a cinematographer or a camera operator who knows how you turn a crane shot, because all these movies end with crane shots that then become helicopter shots.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a subliminal cut. I don't know. Doesn't look like.
Yeah,
it.
I mean, it
looks...
reminds me of, you know, the beginning of The Birdcage, when you're got kind of a helicopter shot going over the water, and that camera just keeps going and going all the way into the club. You're just like, wow.
I mean, these days you could see, you know, you could do that digitally to the point where someone might not notice, but not in '88.
Right.
Maybe they just cut out the bit where you see a cameraman falling to his death from a helicopter.
or what of somebody leaning down from a helicopter to a crane and just
Get
pulling
another
it
camera
off.
operator.
That's great.
That's all I have.
Me as well.
Uh,
Credit check though.
yes, I've already mentioned that Jim Carrey is credited as James
Yeah.
Carrey. This is interesting, given that Buddy Van Horn is a stunt coordinator.
Mm.
The stunt coordinator. Do you know who the stunt coordinator on this movie is?
I do not.
Richard Farnsworth Jr.
No shit.
So
Speaking of Annie Wilkes.
speaking of Misery
Yeah.
and Annie Wilkes, and you know, Richard Farnsworth, for most of his career was a stuntman and stunt coordinator before he went into acting.
Wow.
And apparently passed that on to his son,
Must have.
who also has the same name as him.
All right.
And believe it or not, this is not the last time in these few episodes that we will be talking about father-son stuntmen duos. So stay tuned.
There you have it.
Yeah, I've got a comment again. To say that these movies all end in exactly the same way is an understatement. Because what they all do from I think Magnum Force onwards, from the Enforcer onwards, is that it go at some point the crane into helicopter shot turns into a postcard
Freeze frame.
and we just stay on that for the rest of the movie.
Well, I think because don't I remember for Sudden Impact we stay on the credits are going for so long as the camera's panning away, as the helicopter shot is, you know, getting further and further away from the dock and the city and the state.
Space. It's just a view of San Francisco from space.
So, but what I remember was thinking for a long time, because I rewatched it and I thought, I don't think it ever goes to the postcard. And then all of a sudden it did.
Yeah.
And then I think it actually went to black.
To black.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Which is, there's your sign.
But
that
it's
the
so,
franchise
like,
is
it's
over.
so late in the credits too. It's so funny that I don't know. It just struck me as pretty funny.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So there we go. That's all I have.
All right then.
That's my credit check.
The credit check as it is.
Uh-huh.
This movie is like, if you had to, because we both have declared this a bad movie.
It is a bad movie.
But don't you still kind of recommend it?
Oh,
I
yeah,
mean,
of course I do. Oh, 100%.
Absolutely worth the watch,
Oh,
It's
yeah,
worth a
like
watch.
It is. It's worth it for a first half that more or less works, and a second half
Right.
that is so far from working
That it's kind of delicious.
you've never seen something not working as much as this. So there's a lot you can get out of a. I wouldn't hesitate to put this on. It's leaving HBO Max very soon. Probably by the time we release these, it'll have gone. So I don't know. Would you pay for it?
That's a good question.
I'd pay for the box set. I don't know.
Yeah,
if,
right.
And I wouldn't feel cheated if I got this in a box set context.
Not at all. But I have to admit, if I put the remote to my mouth, with the little voice recognition and said the Deadpool and $3.99 came up, I'd probably be like, I'll wait. I can wait till it's free somewhere.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's it. The Dirty Harry series is in the books, sir. Next we gotta
Certainly is.
pitch some pitches.
Absolutely.
What the hell do you do with a movie like Dirty Harry?
Well, the least that you know is that the title doesn't have to have anything to do with the movie.
All right. You're going to have to tell us what you think, ladies and gentlemen. Are you a Deadpool fan? The movie, not the character. Which is also a movie.
2 movies. And will be 3.
Right. All right. Tell us what you think of the Harry Callahan Deadpool. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. Send us an email to everythingsequel@gmail.com. For Tom Stewart of Lonesome Whistle Productions, Michael Shantz here. I'm from the How Dare You Awards. When you hear us next time, we will try to pitch another sequel to the Dirty Harry series. Say goodbye to the good people, Tom.
She's right. Oh, you can set yourself into a bonfire. We'll break out the marshmallows and the weenies. But you ain't gonna be on News at 11.
That one didn't stick.
Huh?
That line didn't stick in the
Yeah.
public consciousness.
No, but it's a good.
But it's good.
It's very good. However, I have pulled it from a movie quote site where the picture, the little
icon.
What do you call it? The thumbnail for. First of all, the movie is here called Deadpool, and it's a picture of Deadpool, the Marvel character. And underneath and in a related tab on this webpage, under our favorite collection of famous movies, Unforgiven, directed by, what would you say?
Ryan Reynolds.
Try John Huston.
Oh my God. Wow.
Which is a weird mistake to make, given that Clint Eastwood has played John Huston in a movie. Does this mean this website is designed by a person who doesn't understand the difference between characters and directors? Well, anyway, there you go. So thank you to Quotes. It's just called Quotes.
That person probably lists that movie as White Heart Black Hunter.
Well, it's not, and you know what? It's just quotes. It's not even movie specific. So there are like clearly there's a section for literary quotes. So if you want to get definitely inaccurate literary quotes, go to quotes, because this is a website that thinks John Huston, a man long dead,
Directed Unforgiven.
directed Unforgiven.
All right.
There you go.
On that note, goodbye. So long, everyone.
Quotes.